Welcome back to another episode of Cultivate Talks. We still got the mango tree in the background. It's a little rainy, so I'm kind of like ready to run back inside if needed. But it is mango season on the subject of fruit trees that keeps coming up through these episodes. So first order of business, a little agenda, what we're going to talk about. Let's talk a little bit about some updates on the center. And then today, the little rant that I want to go on is about what I think is missing from the modern, we can say, I don't like this term, and I've talked about that before, but we could say modern alternative medicine healthcare model, or just modern healthcare model in general, because my criticisms, I do believe, apply to both. Even though within Chinese medicine, we think we're doing something more holistic, sometimes when we go to actually put that into use, it's not holistic at all. Some of the structures that we kind of take for granted when we pull influences from the society and context from which we live, it just ends up being not holistic the way that we think it is or should be. So a couple updates. The movement space, this big 30 by 12 meter movement space, that's roughly kind of a third of a football field long and decently wide. We just about finished the back wall. That's going to allow one side of the platform is going to have a wall. The other side is going to have pillars to support a roof. The roof costs an arm and a leg, but man, it's really going to be so much nicer to be able to not worry about when we're training because of the rain, because of the sun, because of all sorts of reasons, and just have somewhat of a protected area. I personally love meditating and training outside when I can hear the rain, but maybe not when I'm like soaked by the rain. And also that's better for our health. So that's something we are covering 2/3 of that platform. Leaving a little bit outside. Again, it'll be nice to have some, even just like content, just being able to show off what we're doing outside. And then maybe you want to meditate under the stars. Maybe you want to, be getting some sun while you're using that part of the platform. I think it gives people options, and we still have plenty of space under a roof. So the back wall is just about done. The platform itself is now on its last layer of putting down sand before we're going to put down bricks, a certain type of brick that's very heavy duty. What we're probably going to do for classes and when we're teaching applications and martial arts and things like that is I'm considering doing more of a removable mat as opposed to a longer term mat. We're going to see during this rainy season where the rain comes in, and then during the next dry season where the sun comes in, and maybe I'll invest in something a little more permanent in the future. But for now, because I don't know which parts of the edges of the platform might be getting wet, and I just want to wait and see how the rains and potentially winds during a tough storm would go. I don't want to put down something and then later have to remove it. So we're just going a hard top to start, and then over time we'll add in a impermanent option, later a permanent option on top of the movement space. The 3 cabins are done and set. We're starting on the compostable toilet and outdoor shower of the kind of dorm area. We have the roof for the dorm, which offers more housing. That brings our housing from about 6 guests, up to like 12, 14 pretty comfortably. And so we're starting there because those are honestly the more involved projects, because you don't need running water in the dorm as long as we have a bathroom outside and a shower outside. And it's just putting down wood basically. And so the shower is a really cool concept of working with some permaculture folks who are incredible at this kind of eco-friendly design. And it's going to be a full Taiji or yin yang of 2 different kind of shower cells as you walk in. And then, of course, the compostable toilets are going to offer us eventually like wonderful fertilizer. We have a big biodigester, which gives us biogas on the property, which should be available, I think, starting about this week. It's been there for about 3 weeks, and I think they said it takes 4 to actually produce enough gas to cook with, which is really cool because then we don't have to pay for gas. And more importantly, why would we, we already have this reusable resource that is going to happen from using our compost, might as well make use of it. So that's pretty cool. That's something I didn't know was possible before working with this team. They're also helping to put in a water, kind of like small man-made pond right in front of the movement platform. And we've decided kind of narrowed down which herbs we're going to put around the movement platform as we think about which parts of the property to move our Chinese herbs. So ginger is the leading candidate to kind of go right around the movement platform. It's pretty. It's just a little touch of green to go around things, and yeah, it just kind of works. I think there's one other that we thought about putting in there too, but um, the wonderful thing about living in Costa Rica is that we can grow ginger. Unlike when I first started doing any herbal planting in Boston, Massachusetts, and it was like, oh, all the things I want to grow, I can't grow. Actually, the best growing plant during the dry season has been these Szechuan pepper trees that have gone from, if this is where they started right on the ground, they're kind of up here now in just a couple months, and things tend to really go nuts in the rainy season here as far as growth goes. I think that's really it as far as the construction news. I went away for a couple weeks to Oregon, and then the foxes started using the pool, which was cute. Um, but that's not really construction news. And when we have people around, they'll probably go away. Other things, nothing much. We have the forest now that's officially on Cultivate property, and so that's an extra 3.5 acres of forest that's going to be in the woods right across the street, and that does a couple things. One, it ensures that no one develops that area because there's a bunch of hiking trails back there and a river, and I would rather just have access to go back there instead of somebody paving it over and making it very easy to pass a road back there someday. So I'm trying to be an obstacle to that. Eventually I might put like a hermit hut or like a bridge across the river to get to some of the trails during the rainy season, but nothing too permanent, nothing that's going to really disturb the forest too much. What we're trying to do is actually kind of reforest things with local plants back there, so that things that kind of survive and thrive on their own in the climate that we have in Guanacaste, and then so I don't have to do too much, and hopefully there's some edibles back there. Hopefully we can get some herbs growing back there. It's not like it's going to be just just a forest that you look at. No, we want to put some predictable paths through there so people can enjoy it, can go walk, can go sit in the woods, and really pick up on that vibe, because it is really lovely to be just surrounded by forest. And that's something that even in Costa Rica, if you let development take its course, we're going to lose. So we have to have pretty conscientious projects to make sure that that we don't lose that, because that's one of the best things about being here. And it might take a long time for us to lose that, but it's still a possibility if we don't take certain measures to get in the way of that. What else? I think that's pretty much all that's on the docket. The website's up, cultivatecostarica.com. You can go see that. The Instagram, I've put some construction updates up there. And otherwise, let's just talk a little bit about, it's not quite the mission statement of Cultivate, but it is why we're doing what we're doing. And by we, I mean me and anyone who wants to join me. Because ultimately, that is the first mission statement of Cultivate, is that it is, yes, on one hand, it's my project, and I do maintain a lot of creative control over it. And on the other hand, I don't feel that our community has an access point, like in a physical location that is ours. We often rent space, at least in the Western Hemisphere. There's a few. I'm not saying there's none. There's a few. Oftentimes, their use is restricted by the time of year. And then the other benefit of Costa Rica is that I can offer some amount of residential programming for a lot less of a cost of rent than if we were in the Bay Area in California, for example, where rent is an arm and a leg, no matter which way you look at it. So why do I keep saying we? It's really because I want folks to come down. I want there to be a constant influx of teachers coming through. I want there to be, when there's not events, more in the high season, I want there to be residents who are enjoying the property. Maybe they have a chore or something. Maybe there's a work trade option. I still haven't figured out all these details. but it's just a presence thing. It's maybe some people really just want to like just take a breath of fresh air. Maybe some people are just like, I'm working online anyways. I'm in between apartments. Let me just put my things in storage for a couple months, and why don't I just live in Costa Rica for a while? And so within those kind of residential packages, there will be sessions, could be offering therapy, could be taking regular classes or regular one-on-one sessions, could be working with the community in some capacity, could be gardening, could be doing some chores, could be a lot of things. And so those are the things I want to leave open, because that's ultimately what I do see, that when I went to the temple in China a couple of years ago, to Five Immortals Temple, you go there, you stay there, you're in community, you get to learn, you get to be a part of the culture, you often have to do some chores, which ends up being actually kind of a highlight to live in community in that way. And yeah, it's just a wonderful immersive experience. And when I look at my patients often with acupuncture, I'm often seeing the folks who have struggled to get better as quickly or stay better. I'm often seeing that they don't have community around them, that is doing something healthy that they can resonate with, that they can just be around. And it's just a lot easier to change your habits if everybody else around you is doing a good thing. It's a lot easier to change your thoughts if everybody around you is on a wavelength of positivity and neutrality and balanced and all of that, than drama and gossip and negativity and violence and aggression. Like, it's it's easier to fit into a group. Humans are designed to fit into a group, and it's a shame when people have to choose between going out on their own and kind of rejecting the group when the group is somewhat sick and unhealthy. And that's, for many people, the only way that they're going to get better. But at the same time, it's still sad. You have to reject community, and we're not built like that. Humans are not. We're not designed for that. We're social animals. We're designed for the pack. We're designed to fit in. We're designed to want to be around everybody and to have harmony. When you strip away a lot of conditioning, a lot of desire, a lot of aggression, a lot of competitiveness that Western society builds in us, like we're social animals at the root of it all. So to have that sort of physical embodiment of that is really important. I was talking on a podcast to a friend the other day. It's a wonderful podcast by Lydia Lee, and I'll link it as it comes live and is available. And we were noting that a lot of the books on Chinese medicinal health practices and YangSheng, like this kind of life nourishing longevity practice, a lot of the books and references about them, when people go to talk about it, for example, throughout history in China, they often talk about the techniques. And actually, some of the both placebo and very physical cause of why these things work is the community and cultural aspect of them, which we don't begin to understand until humans are outside of their cultural context in a more modern world. And so I think that's something we have to really take on specifically in this day and age, for people to come together and heal, as opposed to I think there are enough isolated places to heal. I think we need a lot more group healing, and that includes crossing group lines too. And I think that's something that I really want to offer as I change my structure of giving acupuncture, is instead of one-on-one sessions, where that model is very difficult for me to help everyone, and then it tends to be, you have to prioritize people that can afford a certain price point because you can only have so many hours, versus a more community style where people can just roll in, and if you can get there, you can get treatment. And it's not a big deal if you don't have enough money, because the structure is built around pay what you can. And I think that's a wonderful model. That's how I got acupuncture for the first time. I would never have been exposed to acupuncture without that model. Period. Point blank. And whether it's called community acupuncture in a place, or whether it's just like in a Chinese family clinic that's just bustling, and you have all these chairs and beds just out, and as many people as they can possibly treat, they're trying to treat and they're trying to help. That's, I think, much more consistent with what traditional Chinese medicine is about than kind of like the more one-on-one um, system. Certainly there needs to be an intake, certainly there needs to be communication with the patient, solving kind of their root problem, but the amount of time spent with each person, in some ways it's almost like it's necessary. You need to be in communication with that person, but I do think there's also something to be said for lowering the amount of one-on-one time with communication. Still a substantial amount, not we're not just like walking in and throwing needles at somebody. Still within the 15 to 20 minutes of kind of pattern diagnosis, figuring out what works, what doesn't, and then giving them the opportunity to be in community with other folks that are there. What a wonderful thing to be in a place in common with other people having the same experience of getting well. Why not be friends with that person instead of arriving at different times and leaving at different times and never knowing each other's names? Maybe there's an intention setting at the beginning of a session with a bunch of different people. Why can't we kind of change some of these variables in a way that's really going to help the treatment succeed better and the quality of people's lives to be better? And so it also helps me as a practitioner, because instead of feeling like I'm all over the place kind of catering to what patients want, I'm just offering a set structure, and if you want to be a part of it, you come. And so that actually gives me a lot more bandwidth to handle people's stuff, as opposed to like kind of the one-on-one model where it feels like I'm kind of pulling everybody along. If you get a group that's moving in the right direction, there's momentum, it's a lot easier. So that community piece is a huge part of what we're about and what the vision of this center is. And I remind myself of that every day, because right now it's, we're not capable of, we're in too much construction to really host people. But at the same time, some events that we've already had, and events like where I was with Lindsay Way's Shifu Lindsay Way's group up in Oregon, where we have like 35 people in the same place co-living for a couple of weeks at a time. It's like that's a lot of people at the end are reflecting, hey, this is like how humans were meant to live. And it's true. It is. That's what we're designed for. That's not a random feeling. That's not a fluffy hippie thing. That's like what we are designed for. And so over time, kind of creating capacity for that to happen in my neck of the woods, with forest preserved and with space to train, and with herbal medicinals all around, and 15 minutes from the beach, and life is pretty good. So I'll get into some of the other things that I think people are missing in the traditional medical model soon, but we'll start with that community one, because I had enough to say about it to leave this video not too long. So I'll see you next time. Make sure you like and subscribe if you are enjoying these talks. Put them on in your car. You don't have to like take notes to stuff like this, but I hope somewhere, I know within my community people are talking about these sort of things. So my hope is that it connects with people who are also, these ideas are kind of sprouting up, and this podcast can just be throwing a little water on those seeds. So not podcast, this video series. All right. See you next time.